After 4 long years of silence, Rain Brown finally talked about her father, Billy Brown. What she said shocked fans. Her words were honest and her emotions were clear, and one word stuck out loud and clear: called him. What was she talking about? Was it the lifestyle, the pressure, or something much more personal? For years, Rain lived in the shadow of Billy's legacy, quietly carrying the weight of a loss she never fully shared. Until now. In this rare and emotional moment, Rain pulls back the curtain on her life. She pulled back the curtain on her grief, showing the untold toll of her father's death and why things aren't looking good for the family that has been in mourning for years. The Brown family had shown strength by living off the grid and thriving in the wilderness of Alaska. Their adventures were documented in the reality show Alaskan Bush People. But in February 2021, tragedy struck when Billy Brown, the patriarch of the family and the heart of the show, died suddenly of a seizure at the age of 68. Discovery Channel paid tribute to Billy's legacy by calling him a trailblazer and a one-of-a-kind individual. Meanwhile, Billy's son Bear Brown shared the sad news on Instagram, writing, "We are heartbroken to announce that our beloved patriarch Billy Brown passed away last night after suffering from a seizure. Billy was his family's best friend, a wonderful and loving dad, grandfather, and husband, and he will be deeply missed." At the end of season 13, the main character died, leaving the family and the show in a state of uncertainty. Would the Browns be able to move on without the man who had built the family's legacies? Could Alaskan Bush People continue without its main character? These questions lingered in the air as the family struggled to put their lives back together. At the center of it all was Amy Brown, Billy's widow, who was now in charge of the family despite her own life-threatening battle with lung cancer. Amy took on the duties that Billy used to do around the house. In an interview, Bear talked about how strong his mother was, saying that even though he had cried many times, his mother had remained the family's rock. In the months after Billy's death, the Brown family turned their grief into work. Their North Star Ranch in Washington had been badly damaged by a wildfire, leaving them with a huge rebuilding job. It had been Billy's job to do this. He wanted to build a home that could support future generations of Browns, and now making that dream come true was their way of honoring him. But just as the family was getting back on their feet, they got another health scare. In 2022, Amy was told she had 2 large tumors in her ovaries. Thankfully, they were not cancerous, but the news brought back painful memories of her previous battle and the ongoing health problems she was facing. She stayed strong, but it was clear that the Browns' problems were far from over. Fans speculated after season 14, Alaskan Bush People went on hiatus, and many people wondered if the show would ever come back. Rain's words, "it called him," now had even more meaning, whether she was talking about the physical toll of living in the wilderness, the emotional strain of their reality TV fame, or something more personal. The family's tough exterior had started to crack. And for the first time, the world could see how deeply the loss had scarred them. Billy Brown's legacy, Brown's life, wasn't easy or full of privilege. It was shaped by hardship, loss, and an unwavering determination to live an unconventional life. Long before he was the patriarch of the Brown family and the leader of the Alaskan Bush People, he was just a boy whose life was turned upside down. Born on December 3, 1952 in Fort Worth, Texas, Billy's childhood was forever changed when, at the age of 16, his parents and sister died in a terrible plane crash, leaving him alone. Orphaned and completely alone, one minute he was part of a loving family, and the next he had no home, no support, and no direction. He faced the harsh realities of survival much earlier than most, but instead of letting his grief consume him, Billy promised that he would rebuild the family he had lost, one based on love, resilience, and unity. He met Amy Brown when he was 26 and she was 15, and even though their families didn't approve, they started dating. They married because they both wanted freedom and adventure, even though the odds were against them. From the start, they set out to make their own life. Billy's philosophy was simple. Life was meant to be lived away from the restrictions of modern society. He imagined a world where people thrived through self-reliance and families were bound by the strength of their unity rather than the conveniences of city life. Determined to make that vision come true, Billy and Amy welcomed. From the time they were born, Billy raised his 7 children in the wilderness, teaching them how to survive, be independent, and most of all, how important family is. Their lives were not easy. They built their own shelters, fished for food, and lived through harsh winters that would have made most people want to find easier comforts. But Billy saw what other people saw as an impossible challenge, as the ultimate test of human resilience. It wasn't just about survival, it was also about finding purpose in his unusual way of life. Eventually, TV producers became interested, and in 2014, Alaskan Bush People was born. The show brought Billy's vision to the world, captivating millions with the family's raw, untamed existence. Overnight, the Browns became TV icons, and viewers watched as Billy led his children through the dangers of the wild, always stressing how important family was above all else. But behind the scenes, life in the wilderness was taking its toll, with years of hard physical labor, extreme weather, and the lack of modern health care started to hurt Billy's health. He had long-term breathing problems, heart problems, and more tiredness. Even though doctors told him that his body could no longer handle the harsh conditions, Billy refused to leave the life he had built. He was determined to live and die on his own terms. In the later seasons of Alaskan Bush People, his decline became clear to everyone. Viewers saw him fight through exhaustion and gasping for air as he kept going even though his family begged him to slow down. But Billy was determined not to give up on his dream. Then, in February 2021, the unthinkable happened. At the family's homestead in Washington, Billy had a fatal seizure. It was sudden, heartbreaking, and in many ways predictable. Rain's chilling words would later reveal the truth. It called him. What was she talking about? But even in death, Billy Brown left his family a plan for living a brave life in the wilderness. The question is whether his children will continue his legacy as the children of the wild. Even though the Brown family was grieving together, each person found their own way to deal with life without Billy. For some, that meant carrying on. For some, his legacy at the ranch meant making a new path. One of the most talked about family members was Matt Brown, Billy's oldest son. Matt was a main character in the first few seasons of Alaskan Bush People, but his battle with alcoholism caused him to leave the show after season 8. His problems became public when he went to rehab in 2016. Following his departure from the show, Matt kept his fans up to date on his life through his YouTube channel, where he shared his experiences and personal reflections. His journey was not an easy one. He left Alaska and moved to California, where he focused on sobriety and personal growth. In an honest interview, he said that he started drinking to deal with loneliness, but it quickly got out of hand. His family supported him from afar, with Amy wishing him happiness before thinking about going back to the show. "We miss him a lot, but I don't even want him to come back until he finishes this," she said at one point. Matt's siblings also showed their support. Joshua, Bam Bam Brown, and Rain Brown even put out a statement thanking fans for their well wishes and encouraging people who are struggling with mental health or addiction to get help. Meanwhile, Bam Bam Brown, the second eldest son, changed his life after Alaskan Bush People. He had briefly taken a break. Bam Bam left the show in 2017, but later came back. He was known for being quiet and introspective, and he found comfort in photography and travel. He also pursued a relationship with Allison Kagan, a field producer for 90 Day Fiancé, and real life. Their love story began while she worked on Alaskan Bush People, and things took an unexpected turn when they bought and fixed up an old Mar together. It was an odd choice, but it showed Bam Bam's free spirit, and even though they weren't married yet, their relationship seemed strong to fans. People often made guesses about their futures. Some even told them to start a family so that Amy could have more grandchildren. For Noah Brown, who was the youngest of Billy and Amy's sons, he had already done that. He married his longtime girlfriend, Rain Alicia, in 2018, and the couple now has 2 children, Elijah and Adam. Noah often posted pictures of his family life on social media, and became known as the family's problem solver through his interest in DIY projects and technology. However, rumors spread that Noah had spent most of his childhood in the wilderness and wanted to raise his children in a similar setting. This made people wonder what his future would be like on Alaskan bush people. Would he stay with his family in Washington or leave and go his own way? The younger Brown siblings were also going through changes. Snowbird, also known as Birdie, had a serious health scare in 2022 and had to have emergency surgery to remove precancerous tumor. The surgery to remove her ovaries was a wake-up call that made her think about having a hysterectomy, which would stop her from ever having children. The decision was very heavy, and Birdie had a hard time coming to terms with it. At the same time, Rain Brown, the youngest member of the family, was dealing with the emotional effects of losing her father. She had gone on a trip with Birdie to Alaska to reconnect with their roots, but the trip brought up painful memories that overwhelmed her with sadness. During the trip, she got seasick, but it was clear that her problems went deeper. She later said that she felt like a part of her had died with Billy, but it was her later revelation that really stopped fans in their tracks. Just 3 words, no explanation, just silence. The truth would soon come out. In the meantime, Rain knew she needed help and took the brave step of getting professional help to deal with her grief. Her openness touched fans, many of whom had watched her grow. Even people who seemed strong needed help during hard times. As each member of the Brown family found their own way forward, one thing became clear: life after Billy was anything but simple. The children of the wild had lost their patriarch, which meant they had to deal with an uncertain future. But their story was far from over. As each family member dealt with their own grief, the uncertainty surrounding Alaskan bush people hung over them. The Browns had been strong through hard times before Billy's death, but now that he was gone, the question remained: could they keep living their way of life and staying together as a family? Bear Brown, known for his wild and adventurous spirit, had always been one of the more outspoken family members. After Billy's death, his role in the family changed drastically as he tried to embrace a life as a leader alongside his mother. He also had to deal with his own problems. Fans had been closely following Bear's on-again, off-again relationship with Raven Adam. Their love story had been rocky, with short breakups and reconciliations, but despite their differences, they eventually found their way back to each other. The couple had 3 children, whom Bear affectionately called his wolf pack. While Bear had always loved the rough life of the bush, parenthood brought him a new kind of challenges: adventure that required patience, stability, and compromise. At the same time, Bear's younger brother Gabe Brown was in the news for a completely different reason. Over the years, fans had noticed a clear change in his appearance. He had started wearing eyeliner, which many viewers found surprising for a man who had spent most of his life living off the grid. Fans quickly took notice, starting debates about his changing style. Some fans think that Gab's change was connected to the death of his father. Different people deal with grief in different ways. For some, Gabe's unique style was a way of expressing themselves. His wife, Raquel Rose, defended him and told critics that how someone chooses to present themselves has nothing to do with their character, no matter what the public thinks. Gabe continued to embrace his unique look while raising his children and playing guitar, which had always been a big part of his life. Despite these personal problems, the family faced an even bigger problem: financial stability. Since the show's future was uncertain, they had to look for other ways to make money. For some, like Noah Brown, this meant thinking about moving back to Alaska. Noah had always felt a strong connection to growing up in the wilderness, and the idea of raising his own children in a similar setting had been on his mind for a long time. The Browns had moved to Washington to make sure Amy could get the medical care she needed, but now that Amy was in remission, Noah wondered if he should move back to Alaska. When Noah thought about leaving, he brought up another problem. What would happen to the North Star Ranch? The ranch had been Billy's dream, and the family had worked hard to rebuild it after the wildfire. For Rain, Billy's death wasn't just a personal loss. It cast a long shadow over the whole family's way of life and identity on the show The Ranch. With some family members considering different paths, every way forward felt uncertain. Even though the Brown family was having a hard time, Amy remained determined that they could move forward. She had been through more than most, from fighting cancer to losing her husband, but she wouldn't let the family fall apart. With or without the cameras, they had to find a way to keep going. Legal problems and their effect on the show. When Alaskan Bush People was suddenly canceled after 14 seasons, fans were shocked and speculated that the family's personal problems were to blame. Robert Mahan, Billy Brown's former business partner, filed a $500,000 lawsuit against Billy's estate, which was managed by his widow, Amy Brown McGain. He said that Billy had broken contracts that promised him a share of the profits from various creative works, including the TV series. This legal dispute not only put a strain on the family's finances, but it also brought Discovery Channel into the controversy, casting a shadow over the show's future court. Documents showed that Billy was making about $500,000 per episode and that the family was working under a single contract instead of individual agreements. This arrangement showed how closely their personal and professional lives were connected, which made the lawsuit even more important. At the same time, there were problems within the family. For example, Noah Brown asked for protection against his sister Rain, saying she was acting dangerously and abusing drugs, but the request was turned down. The lawsuit probably played a part in Discovery Channel's decision to cancel the show, which meant the end of an era for the Brown family. But in early 2024, 4 years later, everything changed. In a now-deleted social media post, Rain finally talked about how losing her father had affected her, and what she said left fans deeply concerned. "I didn't know how to move forward. I felt like a part of me died with my dad." Fans who had been following Rain's journey could see how hard it had been for her to deal with her grief. But this was the first time she put her pain out there in public, and things were not looking good. What really shocked her was followers were 3 haunting words in her post-it, Kim. The cryptic phrase immediately caused waves of speculation among fans. But for those who had been watching the show closely, the meaning was chillingly clear. Rain seemed to be talking about how Billy's insistence on living in the wilderness, often far from modern health clinics, had hurt him. Billy refused to slow down, even though he had seizures, breathing problems, and serious heart problems. Rain's words seemed to be a quiet but pointed admission that the very life her father loved, the life he built for them in the Alaskan bush, was what killed him. He pushed himself too hard for too long, and a family friend later said he wouldn't rest even when doctors told him to. The thought that the dream Billy had spent decades building might have also caused him to die too soon weighed heavily on Rain's words. Weren't just about grief. They were also about guilt over the legacy her father left behind. Soon after posting, Rain deleted the message and her Instagram account. Some saw it as a cry for help, while others thought she had said more than the family wanted the public to know. Either way, her silence afterwards said a lot about legacy and the road ahead. As the Brown family faced the unknown, the idea of legacy took on a whole new meaning. They were no longer just stars of a reality show, they were a family. Rethinking what it meant to live, love, and persevere through unending challenges was both a burden and a blessing for Amy Brown. Having survived lung cancer and the legal problems that followed her husband's death, she knew that her role went far beyond running the family business. She was the keeper of a tradition and a living example of how to be strong in the face of adversity. Amy's days were now filled with keeping Billy Brown's legacy alive. She had to deal with the complicated North Star Ranch, legal disputes over Billy's estate, and always reassuring her children that every hard time was a stepping stone to a better future. Bear's desire to honor his father's wishes turned into a mission to create a supportive environment for the next generation. In his eyes, every challenge was a chance to teach his children the values of persistence and resourcefulness as they grew up under his care. Bear began writing about their journey. Gabe, who was always creative, started to combine his love of art and music. His guitar, which he used for fun, became a way for him to tell stories of loss, hope, and the courage to be yourself. His changing appearance, which used to be a source of debate, was now seen as a sign of authenticity. Gabe's journey served as a reminder that true legacy was not about him, not by conformity, but by the freedom to be one's true self. Noah's inner conflict between the call of the wild and the needs of his family pushed him to look for new ways to balance both worlds. He started to use technology to make traditional ranch tasks more efficient by combining sustainable methods with care for the natural environment. Noah wanted to make a model that future Brown family generations could follow. Modernity and tradition can live together peacefully in the future, creating a world where the family's legacy can thrive. Birdie and Rain, the emotional hearts of the family, each took their own steps to create their own legacies. Birdie, who was struggling with the effects of her health decisions, started to bring attention to women's health problems in communities like hers. Her story of going from fear to empowerment struck a chord with viewers, turning her personal struggle into a public advocacy. Meanwhile, Rain's experience with her grief and her journey to healing encouraged others to see vulnerability as a strength. Her story, told in private conversations and public appearances, showed how important mental health is and how powerful it is to get help during life's darkest moments. Together, the Browns began to rethink what it meant to leave a legacy. It wasn't just about surviving in the harsh wilds or capturing moments on camera. It was about transformation, compassion, and the enduring human spirit. Do you think Rain Brown's Revelation fans will see their family story differently after seeing this? How would you have handled things if you were her? Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us next time for more shocking news.